Michelle Obama, accompanied by her two daughters, Malia and Sasha, decided to take a nostalgic trip to a quaint toy shop that had once been a local gem during her youth. This shop, nestled in the heart of the city, had a reputation for its rare toys and friendly atmosphere, or so it seemed. As they approached the shop, Malia, now a teenager with a sophisticated air, and Sasha, still holding on to her youthful curiosity, were thrilled at the idea of exploring the place their mom had talked about so fondly. The shop's exterior, though modest, had a whimsical charm with its colorful window displays of model trains, stuffed animals, and intricate dollhouses. The moment they stepped inside, however, the atmosphere felt different. The store owner, a middle-aged man with a stern face and calculating eyes, glanced up briefly before returning to his task of arranging the shelves. The shop was sparsely occupied, with a couple of families browsing quietly. "Wow, Mom, look at this!" Sasha exclaimed, rushing toward a shelf of beautifully crafted puzzles. Malia followed, inspecting a display of vintage board games. Michelle, smiling at their enthusiasm, stayed near the entrance, taking in the nostalgic sights. She noticed, however, that the shopkeeper's gaze kept darting toward her daughters, his expression shifting to something less than welcoming. "Excuse me," the shopkeeper suddenly called out, his voice sharp and echoing across the room. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't touch the merchandise unless you're planning to buy." Malia and Sasha froze, their joy turning into confusion. Michelle raised an eyebrow, watching the scene unfold from afar. "We're just looking," Malia replied politely, placing the game she was holding back on the shelf. "Well," the shopkeeper said curtly, stepping closer, "some people come in here just to mess around, and I can't have that in my store." His tone carried an unmistakable edge, and Michelle felt a pang of unease. She decided to step forward, her presence commanding yet calm. "Is there a problem here?" Michelle asked, her voice steady but filled with quiet authority. The shopkeeper hesitated, his eyes scanning her face as if realizing she seemed familiar, but not quite placing her. "Your kids were, let's just say, they seemed more interested in playing than purchasing," he muttered. Michelle's smile remained, though her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "They're here to browse and enjoy the experience, just like any other customer," she said firmly. The shopkeeper's demeanor grew colder. "I run a business, ma'am, not a daycare," he said bluntly. Malia and Sasha looked at their mother, unsure how to react. The other families in the store began to notice the tension, casting curious glances toward the unfolding scene. Little did the shopkeeper know, the lesson Michelle was about to teach would not only transform his outlook, but ripple far beyond the walls of his toy shop. Michelle's gaze never wavered as she assessed the shopkeeper's dismissive attitude. She had encountered situations like this before, instances where judgment was passed without merit, assumptions made without understanding, but she also knew that how one responded in such moments defined not only the individual but the opportunity to inspire change. "Let's take a moment here," Michelle began, her voice calm yet carrying a weight that silenced the room. "I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Are you implying my daughters aren't welcome to browse because you think they don't belong here?" The shopkeeper, caught off guard by her directness, faltered. "I didn't say that, but we've had problems before," he stammered, gesturing vaguely. "Problems?" Michelle repeated, her tone unwavering. "Or perhaps assumptions." The tension in the shop thickened. A few families had quietly stepped aside, pretending to focus on the shelves while listening intently. Sasha and Malia stood close to their mother, their initial confusion turning into quiet admiration for how she handled the situation. "I've run this store for 20 years, the shopkeeper replied defensively, crossing his arms. "I can tell when someone's not serious about buying." Michelle took a slow breath, her composure unshaken. "Let me tell you something about my daughters," she said, her voice carrying a deliberate rhythm that demanded attention. "They are respectful, curious, and full of potential, and whether they buy something today or not, their worth isn't determined by your assumptions about them." The shopkeeper shifted uncomfortably under her steady gaze. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "Oh, I think you did," Michelle replied, a hint of steel in her voice. "Not just to my daughters, but to every customer in this shop who might have been judged unfairly before." The murmurs of the other families grew louder. One woman stepped forward, a mother holding her young son's hand. "She's right," the woman said, her voice shaking slightly but gaining strength. "We've felt it too. You watch us like we're going to cause trouble just because we don't fit your idea of typical customers." The shopkeeper looked around, realizing the tide was turning against him. Michelle, ever the educator, saw an opportunity not for conflict, but for change. "Here's the thing about running a business," she continued, her tone softening just slightly. "It's about more than profits. It's about community, respect, and creating a space where everyone feels valued." She gestured toward the shop, the shelves filled with toys meant to bring joy. "This place should be a haven for kids, for families, for anyone seeking a little happiness. But right now, it's not. And that's something only you can change." The shopkeeper's face turned red, his arms dropping to his sides. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Michelle reached into her bag and pulled out a small card. "Think about what kind of legacy you want to leave," she said, handing it to him. "If you're open to learning, there are workshops and resources here that can help you create a more inclusive and welcoming space. It's never too late to start doing better." The card read, "Community Diversity Initiative, Building Bridges, Breaking Barriers." The room was silent as Michelle turned to her daughters, her warm smile returning. "Now let's pick something special, shall we?" she said, leading them to the shelves. The shopkeeper stood frozen, the weight of her words settling over him. For the first time, he truly saw the potential for change, not just in his shop, but in himself. As Michelle and her daughters began exploring the aisles, the energy in the store shifted. The other customers who had been quietly observing felt a renewed sense of belonging, encouraged by her unwavering grace and strength. Sasha picked up a plush teddy bear, while Malia admired a beautifully crafted puzzle. Their joy was contagious, drawing smiles from the families nearby. It was a stark contrast to the tension earlier, a reminder of the warmth and unity that such a space should inspire. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper remained at the counter, clutching the card Michelle had handed him. Her words echoed in his mind, mingling with the murmurs of the other customers who had voiced their grievances. He realized this wasn't an isolated incident. His biases had alienated countless families over the years. After a few moments of reflection, he took a deep breath and approached Michelle. "Excuse me, ma'am," he began hesitantly. Michelle turned, her expression soft but attentive. "I owe you and your daughters an apology," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I acted out of ignorance and judgment, and I'm deeply sorry. You were right. I need to do better." Michelle studied him for a moment, sensing the sincerity in his words. "Acknowledging the problem is the first step," she said kindly, "but the real work lies in what you do next. Change takes effort, but it's worth it." The shopkeeper nodded, a flicker of determination crossing his face. "I'll make sure this place becomes what it's meant to be, a welcoming space for everyone." "Thank you for opening my eyes," Michelle offered a small smile. "It's never too late to start anew. And remember, kindness and understanding are the greatest investments you can make." As the shopkeeper returned to his counter, he noticed the families who had been hesitant earlier now shopping with ease. The shift in the store's atmosphere was palpable, a testament to the power of accountability and change. Michelle and her daughters selected a few items, and as they approached the register, the shopkeeper refused payment. "Please, consider it a gift," he insisted. Michelle shook her head gently. "No, thank you. This is about more than gifts. It's about setting an example." She handed over her card and paid for the toys, leaving a generous tip for the staff. As they exited the store, the girls beamed with happiness, clutching their new treasures. Sasha turned to her mother. "Mom, do you think he'll really change?" Michelle smiled, placing an arm around her daughters. "I think he's taken the first step. The rest is up to him, and to all of us, to keep choosing kindness over judgment." The screen fades to black, and Michelle's voice echoes in the background. In life, we're often faced with opportunities to make a difference, whether big or small. It's up to us to choose compassion, stand against injustice, and create spaces where everyone feels valued. Remember, change starts with you. A caption appears. If this story resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to join us in spreading positivity and powerful lessons. Let's make the world a better place, one story at a time.